So Patrick, the cows come up out of the underpass here.
Yep.
And we're looking at a wide entry. So when the cows come in, when they're heading into the parlour, they're heading left here, are they?
Yeah, they are. No, the parlour is down here, and in the meantime, I'm sort of not going ahead with the rotary just to see how things go, because the world has changed a lot since I even started this shed.
Yeah.
So I'll be intending to use one of the passages, probably the centre passage, closing off the cubics completely in the summertime once the cows go out, because I don't want them to lie in them. And then we'll run down. We're going to modify an existing building down here and let the entrance into the lower side of the collecting yard.
So this was one of your original sheds? So
yes, this is the original shed.
On. So how many cubicles were in that?
Yeah, there was 109 cubicles in that shed.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kept that because they're modern type of cubicles and the cows love it.
Okay.
So then we extended we took the gable off the existing shed when we built this shed, and we've merged the two together. So you can see this bay here is an extra bay on it.
Okay, so it's a nice wide access here.
Yep, so the cows, but you can see this is one of the issues here, and it was an issue I had, and Simon had highlighted it to me. That was the original shed, that was always too narrow.
Yeah.
Okay, that passage was always too narrow. So we made the new passages wider than that. Because it was always very dirty, and also cows are sowing each other in that. And we had there were dead end passages, so like again, bad idea.
Yeah.
So everything can circulate here at this stage. So we have a bit of work to do. There's a modification on the scraper here to get it to come this way, but we're working on all that, and we have a few extra cables to add, but we just need to use as much of the shed as we could.
What's this idea here?
So yeah, that's an area to store stuff, like the sawdust and the sawdust dispenser. We're currently having a lower shed, and just when I was working through this, rather than to have a couple extra cubicles, we just have a store inside the shed. So it's somewhere, it's not, we need a door on it, and we need to put an electric point into for the chargers, but ultimately that's where any equipment needed for keeping the shed clean will be on there.
Yeah,
so
which is convenient relative. It's a struggle
in the
for some people that's coming so far.
Yeah. Because you can imagine that when the cows are in here in the wintertime, you don't want to be sort of opening the gates, you want to have everything in it, so it's just a little addition to it.
So due to the weather, I presume you put all your feed passages internally?
Yes, yeah.
This is your first one?
Yeah, this is the first here, okay, and then you're feeding both sides of it. So the whole idea here is to have enough space to feed all the cows at the same time. There is, if you measure it up here, 320 cows need at the same time. Okay. We do a fair bit of buffer feeding, and we have to at certain times of the year, just with the variability in the weather. So we have that option now, which we didn't have before.
So you can feed all your 320 cows together?
All together,
yeah.
Yes. There's no space.
And why is that a help to you?
From a buffer feeding point of view, if the cows are coming in, we leave them out on grass during the night and daytime, but if we want to give them an extra 2 or 3 kilos of, say, silage or maybe a mix, they'll eat it over milking. So they come in here, eat it, and they're back out to the fields. And what's happened before when we did this, younger cows or older cows get excluded. So you'd have 150 of the cows getting something and 150 getting nothing. Okay. Now they all get it at the same time. They all can get, obviously you're going to get better performance from the weaker cows.
Yeah. So when I come in here, a couple of things come to mind is the pitch on the roof. It's bright, and it's also quite airy here. Your design feature there?
Yeah. So when I designed the shed along with Seamus, obviously I had plans from Simon through yourselves, and Simon had made various recommendations in terms of the shed, but there wasn't a detailed plan in terms of the design of the shed. McMenamin's designed sheds. There was a shed, my brother in Ballyhaise Ag College has put up a shed, and he has a bit of experience in building sheds, and he was very adamant about the 15-degree pitch in the roof, and also to have no spaces in the roof, but to have the sides open and the top open, so that you effectively have the stack effect of moving the air out of the shed. It's better for obviously better quality air in the shed, but also it takes less pressure of condensation on the roof because you have an air movement up there, so you hopefully will have less damage to the roof over time. So that's a 15-degree pitch there, and there's no gaps in the roof. And then the light was a very important thing for me, and in fairness to my Chaggas advisor Tommy Doherty, would have given me a bit of help in designing this as well, and he was adamant about light. He says it's hugely important to cows psychologically and to people. Yes. You want as well as having a nice place for cows, you want a place that people like to work on as well.
Correct. It's very bright.
Yeah.
And a lot of bracing.
Yeah. Seamus was adamant about the bracing because it's nearly 10 metres tall at the centre, and there's a lot of wind up here, so you need to be able to handle the wind. So I've been very impressed when you come here in a storm. We've had a few last winter time, and you see every one of those braces actually been tensioned. Okay. You need it all. So yeah, that's important.
So the feed passage on this side is a slatted tank then.
Yeah, it's a slatted tank, and it's wide. It's 16'6". So the slats came from Tracy's in Enniskillen. The local suppliers didn't do those wide slats. They're 9-inch deep. It's the first time my building contractor Noel has ever done a tank that wide. There's extra capacity in it, but you have obviously space for cows to eat, cows to come out of cubicles, and you have space in the centre then. So
what weight again did you say?
16'6".
Okay, and depth of the tank?
8 foot.
8 foot. Okay. Yeah.
And there's the 212 new cubicles in this house here. So Condon's in County Louth did the cubicles for me, and the mats, they're the Wella mattress.
Okay.
So
and you've a few 4 crossovers in total across the whole length.
Yeah, and the cows love those crossovers. They absolutely, those centre ones there. Simon was adamant about that you need the crossovers. It's too long. In our existing shed, there was no crossovers, but he said it makes a massive difference. And I know the cows it's incredible how quick they come out of those cubicles to feed. Okay. If you start to feed them.
You've another crossing then further up.
Yeah, that's
the cross feed passage for possibly milking.
Yeah, that takes the cows back into, so they can circulate here, so they can go back into the milking. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So
they can come across the two ends. But the idea as well, because in the winter time we'd be starting drying cows off, and we actually do supply a little bit of milk over the winter from late calving cows. Yeah. So at certain times you need to divide this into sub pens. So the potential for 6 sub pens in this.
Yes.
And so, for example, only yesterday we take the last dry cows out of it. There's 12 or 14 dry cows down in a corner of the shed. We took them down to the calving facilities. They'll be calving the next week or two. Okay. And the job's all done. So this is the first day that the whole shed is available to the milking cows.
Right. What weight of passage here then?
That's it was a 10-foot passage.
Okay.
This the 2 foot wider than the existing. Just that was too narrow.
Yes.
8 foot was too narrow. That's a big difference there from the cow. Get cows coming off the cubicles and then just not knocking each other. Yeah. Not it's yeah. You can see that it's important. And then the troughs, they're the tip over troughs I got from Condon's. They're very easy to keep them clean. So
yeah. And so again, the same.
Yeah, the same width. And then I thought I could keep this side of it open until we built the shed, and this year it was just impossible. We had to seal this end of it. You know, if you go down the country, you see a lot of sheds open on this side of it here. Yeah. But the wind, it just never.
It's just a different environment up here. Yeah. Yeah. Probably people don't realise the reality of the weather up here.
Yeah. And the wind. It's very rare you get a calm day here. Yeah. And it's a wind tunnel. So this shed is built effectively in the wind tunnel. And when we had this end of the shed done, and we didn't have the doors on it, and we actually had cows inside, and they hated the shed. They absolutely detested it. It's only when we sealed that and put the doors on it that the cows actually started moving into the shed.
Okay. Yeah.
They stayed in the old shed until this was done. And it's like flicking a switch, Bertie. When we put the doors on it, sealed it up, the cows all came up to it. Yeah. They don't like drafts. Yeah. And I had to do it. It was actually not a big extra cost to do that, and it looks excessive, but I have no regrets because you can see I have my fertilizer stored in there. So
it's a good store as well. Yeah.
And it's a good wide passage. Again, both Simon and my brother were adamant about the width of it. The machinery's getting bigger and bigger all the time. Yeah. And you just don't want to
build it once.
Yeah. So the passage is the same. That's a 20-foot passage. There's a 16-foot passage. The machinery, you just need that for comfort in terms of the machinery going through it.
Yeah. We're looking at your aeration system for Slurry. Linton Robinson put it in. Yeah. Why did you put in an aeration system?
Well, they're big tanks, right? So they're nearly 18 metres long. Okay. So and they're the shed's about 40 metres wide. So it was always going to be a challenge to mix a tank that big. And we just decided to store. I have an overground tank, and the big issue of the rainfall, we have to go and put a roof on that. So there's big rainfall here. So my experience is that if we can keep the water off it and try and keep the tanks underneath the sheds as we had in some of our older sheds, it generally works very well for us. So we needed the capacity, so we built the big tanks when we were doing the shed. And then I'd seen it in other farms about trying to get the slurry mixed, and I met Trevor at the ploughing match a couple of years ago, and I was talking through that with him, and then he brought me to see a few farms, and a few of my own discussion group have them in, so they generally were very pleased with it. And it looked like a good machine, and I liked their story in that sense. Okay. But another big advantage is obviously the slurry is ready to go out at any stage.
Okay. And that's reality, is that is the fact.
Yeah. And again, people have been laughing at me about my timing on this. Like the fertilizer has gone up between 2.5 and 3 times. So I was always intending to try and get better value for my slurry in the springtime. One of the challenges here, we have our own tanker, but it's too heavy for going on the ground, and so the whole umbilical cord with the contractor is the way to go in my mind. So I'd set that up, but our tanks were all over the place. We were hauling slurry to other yards because we didn't have the capacity here, and we needed the slurry here to be able to put it out in the springtime. Yeah. And we needed it mixed at all stages. So this is the first spring we were able to do that. So come 1st of February, we were able to go out and do about 3/4 of the grazing platform at that stage, and then we put the rest of it out as we grazed it after the cows. And then we did all the silage ground there last week. So we were able to get the tanks emptied effectively with the contractor with the umbilical pipe. So very efficient.
So briefly, what are we looking at here? What are the makeup of the system?
Yeah, so there's a network of pipes at the bottom of the tank. They went into it, so there's 24 circuits on it. And each of those pipes is into a circuit on the bottom of the tank over the whole basis, and they come up into this. This is the compressor, and then the compressor creates the air into a manifold on top of the pipes there. Yeah. And then there's a valve in each of those pipes, and then the computer here controls that. So she effectively sends the air to each circuit then for about 2 minutes. And it's on a rotation basis, so one circuit, and then she finishes that circuit, closes it off, opens up the next circuit, It just goes round the 24 different sections, and she does that twice over the night time. It's all on nitrate electricity.
Okay. Yeah. Is it heavy on power or not?
Yeah,
or?
well, it's hard to quantify it yet. It's something I can't answer for definite.
Yeah.
But because it's a nitrate, that's going to be significantly cheaper than during the daytime.
Okay.
And it was very well mixed.
Okay.
The tank's more or less empty, so I intend to put it down to one mix now during the night time. I think it'll work around at that. Now we had, quite watery because we moved our water up to it during the winter time. Because I know from experience, the more water the slurry, the better it is to grow grass.
Okay.
Yeah. So a dairy farmer, I have loads of dirty water.
Okay.
And just manage that properly, you'll have lovely slurry.
Okay. Just looking at the finish on the shed here, just the way the door is finished there relative and the overlap. Could you describe what? Yeah,
so this was an innovation. Seamus McManaman, the company that put up the shed for me, McManaman Engineering, and Seamus is the boss in that. And this is an innovation he developed recently, where in the past we would have had flashing over the top of the door as the rain comes down over the edge. So we basically set out the top part of the shed, and then the doors are running underneath the top part, so that any rain that comes down flows down on the outside of the doors, and there's no flashing. The flashing tends to be vulnerable for wind damage, and especially we're on the western side of the shed here, so it gets huge wind.
Okay.
So we had to design this shed with that in mind.
Right.
So it's a very neat finish, and the doors obviously are essential. It was amazing. We had to get cows into that shed before it was finished last September, October, and it was open with the doors at this end. And because the wind comes from the side, the cows hated the shed. It's only when the doors went on, and even now, if you open those doors, the amount of air comes into the shed is incredible. Right. So even through winter time, we've had to keep the doors closed during the daytime, because it's incredible the effect it has. But the whole thing is very well sealed up at this side.
Yes, it looks well finished.
Yeah, it's a lovely finish. No, I'm very pleased with the shed.
Very good. So Patrick, we came out here now to have a look at the silage bits. This is the first thing you did.
Yep.
Why was it the first thing you did?
Yeah, because I hadn't got capacity for silage, and I had an effluent problem. And look, the reality is we can't have dirty water problems. We have to manage dirty water.
Yeah.
So we had an earthen bank silage pits here where we're standing, and it wasn't keeping the effluent, so I just had to deal with that. So then we took away that earthen bank silage pit, and we built these 2 concrete pits.
Okay.
And so we've captured the effluent, and we have capacity. So we dug them into the hills. So actually we don't backfill, but you could backfill if you wanted in the future. If you were at a bigger stage, you could put barriers to the front. But my contractor prefers load from the floor, so that's the way he wants to fill them.
So he's loads of space as a contractor, which he probably enjoys.
Yeah, he loves that. Yeah, no, it's making a big difference to him, So because the machinery is big and they need space.
Yeah.
So you could have 2 loaders in that. You could have 2. Those pits are big enough that you could have 2 self-propels feeding into them. And it doesn't take long. And then they're very easy covered too. The way they are.
Am I right in saying too, in the plan we've created with you, there's going to be a meal store over there in time?
That's right. Yeah. So I got the plan for the meal store here. So it leaves your meal beside your silage then.
Yeah. And as we walk over here, then you have space again, but again it's within mind to put maybe a couple of smaller pits.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've planned for one big pit, but there's no reason why I couldn't split them into 2 small pits. Because they're grand. Like your first cut fills that, your second cut fills that. Now we have another pit down where we've used. But I probably need a few smaller pits rather than another big pit.
Okay. Yeah. So what would you put in the likes of that then? Your dry cow, the feed for your dry cow is very important, and I take some hay meadow silage from neighbours of mine, and it's poor quality silage of the digestibility, but it's ideal for dry cows. We would have fed a good bit of straw in the past. Straw is too expensive. Right.
And so I've gone away completely from straw because of the cost of it. And we've used this poor quality sort of 65, 66 DMD silage for dry cows, and it has been brilliant.
Okay.
Because the worst thing you can do with dry cows is feed them too good a quality silage.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a pit for that.
Okay.
And then maize is something some people try around here. Maybe if the climate changes and it get a bit warmer, it might work more effectively, but it's something I don't do, but we never know what happens in the future.
Yeah. And so maybe in time, if you decide to proceed with the rotary goes here then?
Yeah, the rotary goes there, the collecting yard the far side of it, and these buildings will all be demolished.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, you can see they owe me nothing. My father put them up in 1972, so they're older than I am, and they've got a lot of value, but so 2 of those are not being used now. We just immediately stopped using them once we built the new shed. We're still using this one here, but if I'm going to keep using it, I need to do a bit of work inside it. Yeah. But look, I have options. I have plenty of capacity now, and
those buildings have served their function, and they brought you to here today anyway, or whatever. It's progress.
Yep. And we just held off, and a lot of farmers would sort of build year and year and build a wee bit and a wee bit and a wee bit, and I just held off for a while, planned the whole thing out, and went with it, and obviously got the money from the bank to do it and pay it back over a period of time. But I never thought that the inflation would come the way it has in the last year. That's a big change.
Yeah. No, fair enough. So maybe just to finish, Patrick, on inflation and the reality of the world we're in at the moment, you mentioned it or whatever, like, so building today versus building, when you started planning for this 2 or 3, 4 years ago.
I know, like nailing down the price of the materials and doing the deal on the shed. When I went to, I have a figure that it costs me, and I went to my insurance company and I gave it to them, and they instantly doubled it. They told me that, because bear in mind that it's self-built, so it's cheaper than if I brought an overall contractor.
Yeah.
That was a saving to me. But if I went today, and they told me if I went and got a contractor to build this shed today, it was double what I paid for it. And that's in the space of 18 months. It's frightening.
Yeah.
But that's the world we're in.
Yeah, no, so it's probably a time for pause for some people.
Well, it's pause for me too, in the sense I've spent a lot of money here. We'll just have to batten down the hatches and see where it all goes. But look, hopefully there'll be a bit of sense coming back into everything. But it's very tough for anybody in building at the minute.
Yeah. So, well aware anyway in your shed.
Thank you.
A fabulous project, and we're glad to have some part in it.
And thanks very much for the help at the start. As I say, I was a big believer in planning, and Grass Tech give a great help in that. And it's so easy to sort of experiment in paper and with computers than to actually do it. And when I started building this here, I wanted this done, and the contractor was saying, we never did it like this before, and this is, I want it done this way. And if you talk to the contractors, they said he knew what he wanted. Yeah. And then when your tanks and your shed come together, if there's mistakes or there's something there, they don't blend together, and then there's problems, and then the contractors may blame each other. But the whole thing worked incredibly well, and everybody, in fairness, all the contractors. And then the other thing is, I'm really pleased with the quality of workmanship. You can see that. And every contractor I had were stepping up. Everyone wanted to do that. Nobody wanted to let the project down.
No,
and I was really
it makes a
impressed
difference
with
to have it well finished.
Yeah,
because you're looking at it for the rest of your life.
That's right. Yeah,
and the small things count.
Yeah.
No, so look, thank you for your time, Patrick.
Very good, Bertie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.